Welcome to Fulcrum Intel Digest, the podcast.
Okay, so you asked for it, this big synthesis. You wanted us to pull back from all those deep dives we've done.
The Extremist Friday videos, right?
Exactly, our critical analysis there. And you wanted us to find, well, the core playbook, the unified strategy behind it all. So that's our mission today. We're moving past just the individual incidents, Somalia, DRC, Mozambique, the Sahel, all of that, and we're zooming out.
Right.
We want to identify the common threads, the shared strategies, the psychological games, the media tactics that all these, really different extremist groups are using across Africa.
That's absolutely the goal. It's like treating each local conflict as a chapter in a much bigger book.
A manual, maybe?
Yeah, a manual, exactly. And our job now is to find the table of contents, see how it all fits together. Because while groups like Al-Shabaab, ISCAP, ISISM, they operate in different places, right?
Totally different contexts.
But the way they run their information war, how they recruit, how they try to undermine governments, it's surprisingly similar, standardized even.
We cover more topics like this every Monday and Friday. So if you'd like to stay up to date, click the subscribe button and give this video a like. Now let's jump in.
And frankly, it's quite sophisticated.
Terrifyingly so, based on the source material.
It is. So we're going to try and pull back the curtain on just how professional these media operations are, the strategic thinking behind them.
Okay, let's unpack this then. We've got, 5 major source streams here, covering everything from really high-def propaganda films.
Yeah, the polished stuff.
To raw, unfiltered chat logs from their support networks.
The logistical side, too.
So we need to see how they use that media polish, how they tap into history, those old grievances.
And basic human needs, absolutely. Belonging, purpose.
To create this cycle, right? Recruitment, making themselves look legit, and then, the terror itself. It's not just fighting.
No, not at all. It's a full-blown information war. Highly coordinated, high stakes.
All right, let's start in East Africa with Al-Shabaab. Because the sources really seem to point to them having one of the most, maybe the most developed media operations out there.
Yeah, the reports we analyzed were pretty clear on that. They called it one of the most organized, most effective propaganda machines globally among these kinds of groups.
That says a lot right there. This isn't some side project for them.
No, definitely not an afterthought.
Wow.
Media is clearly a core function, high priority, and their structure shows it. They've got 2 main parts working together.
Okay.
First, there's the Al-Qaeda Media Foundation. Think of that as their high-end production studio. They do the polished videos, documentaries, the slick speeches, all the audiovisual stuff.
Got it. The Hollywood wing.
Sort of, yeah.
Uh-huh.
And then, crucially, that content gets pushed out through their second arm, the Shahada news agency.
So that's the distribution network.
Exactly. Shahada is the engine, pushing out high volumes of content constantly. It's their digital shop window, as one source put it. Keeps them visible daily.
So Al-Qaeda makes the movies, Shahada makes sure everyone sees them.
Pretty much. And the distribution itself is incredibly smart. It's multi-platform, multi-language. They're not just sitting back waiting for clicks.
How so?
Well, they're pushing these pro videos everywhere. They use encrypted apps like Telegram for security. They dominate local radio where, the government signal is weak or non-existent.
Right, exploiting those gaps.
Absolutely. And even using community events, twisting them into messaging opportunities. And language. They're meticulous.
They tailor it.
Deeply. Somali, Oromo, and Amharic. This is just generic Arabic stuff dropped in. They understand the local cultures, the specific historical sore spots, the linguistic divides. That makes the message hit much harder.
So what's the main goal of all this machinery? What's the narrative?
First and foremost, it's narrative control. Always. They frame everything they do, all the violence, as purely defensive.
Defensive.
It's always about protecting Islam from external threats, whether that's local apostates, the government in Mogadishu, or this vague Western world trying to destroy them, or very specifically the Ethiopian crusaders.
That mix.
Yeah.
Religion, nationalism, history. That sounds potent.
It's incredibly potent. And we saw a really chilling example of how they weaponize suffering. Remember those Ethiopian airstrikes in Middle Shabelle and Lower Shabelle?
Vaguely, yeah. What did Al-Shabaab do?
Well, the Somali government said they hit Al-Shabaab targets. But Al-Shabaab, they moved incredibly fast. They didn't just claim civilians were hit.
They showed proof.
They released photos, yes. But critically, they released names. Specific names of alleged victims, women, children included.
Wow. Names make it personal.
Exactly. That's the psychological weapon. It turns an abstract claim into a real tragedy for those communities. And they immediately use that grief, that anger, to paint the government as complicit with these, quote, crusaders and traditional enemies.
So they channel that pain right back into their recruitment pitch.
Straight into it. It becomes this powerful emotional reason for their main call to action, urging Somali youth to take up arms against this infidel alliance. They position themselves as the only ones who can actually protect the people.
And it's not just about ideology, right? They also project strength, competence.
Definitely. They don't just win a battle, they make sure everyone knows about it meticulously. Look at when they took that town, Masajid Ali Gadood, back in March 2025.
What did they show them?
Images of captured soldiers, seized weapons, standard stuff to boost morale internally and look strong externally. But notice the language they used.
How so?
Very vague operational details. They just called it a multi-directional attack.
Why be vague?
That's strategy.
Yeah.
It lets them control the story completely. They can inflate the victory's importance without giving any hard facts that outsiders could check or challenge, maximize the hype, minimize the scrutiny.
Well, clever.
But here's what I found really, really smart about their media game.
They don't only talk about themselves.
What else do they cover? They report on seemingly unrelated regional news, like fighting between Fano militias and Ethiopian forces, or even Rick Makar's house arrest in South Sudan.
Why bother with that? How does that help them?
It builds credibility. By covering this other news, sometimes framing it subtly, like calling the Fano the Amhara Liberation Front, they start to look like a reliable, objective news source.
Ah, I see. So you start trusting them for general news.
Exactly. You see them as a comprehensive source.
Yeah.
And then when they slip their own propaganda, their ideological content, into that same feed.
It goes down easier. You're already primed to trust the source.
Precisely. It makes the propaganda far more palatable, more legitimate seeming. It's a long game.
Okay, there's one more piece from the Al-Shabaab sources we have to touch on, and it's deeply disturbing.
The child indoctrination, yes.
During Eid al-Fiqh, their Shahada news agency put out photos from what they call the crafts exhibition in the Julib region.
Sounds innocent enough, right? Cracks exhibition.
But the pictures, horrific. Young boys, kids, holding toy guns. Okay, maybe normal play. But then also holding what looked like real, actual weapons.
Yeah. Presenting weapons is just another part of childhood, part of a community fair. It's the most direct way to normalize violence, to militarize the next generation from the cradle almost.
It's basically recruitment disguised as culture.
Thinly veiled, yes. Child soldier recruitment right out in the open. And the sources noted women and girls were present too.
Which is concerning. Why?
Well, given how these groups often use girls for support roles, more recruitment, or even forced marriage, their presence there is worrying. It shows that this isn't happening in secret. It's woven into community life, making it much harder to tackle with just military action.
Okay, let's shift gears now, move across the continent. DRC, Uganda, the Islamic State Central Africa Province, or ISCAP.
Right. And their media strategy feels different from Al-Shabaab's daily grind.
Yeah, very different. It seems like they trade that constant local presence for like maximum global ideological impact. We looked hard at that 18-minute video, Jihad and Dawa, from September 2025. And this wasn't some grainy cell phone clip. This thing had incredibly high production value. It looked like a slick, professional, historical documentary.
But then interspersed with extremely brutal, high-def violence.
That contrast is jarring. Why go for that high-end look?
That aesthetic, that polish, it's a weapon. It targets two key groups. First, potential foreign donors, people who want to see a sophisticated product that backs up this global jihad narrative they believe in.
Okay, impresses the money people. Who else?
Ideologically driven recruits, people who want to join something that feels powerful, globally significant, not just some local bush war. That high production value immediately lifts their fight onto a bigger stage.
And how do they build that significance? The video didn't start in Congo, did it?
No, that's the key. It opens with historical images, Crusades imagery. They immediately frame their current fight as just the latest chapter in these ancient religious wars.
Linking today's enemies to the past?
Directly. They show pictures of George W. Bush, American soldiers, right alongside images of medieval crusaders, making that explicit link.
So this isn't just about local politics or poverty.
According to them, no. It's giving their struggle millennia of ideological weight, turning local grievances into this grand, noble, eternal fight. They specifically call out the TJTFO, the Coalition Task Force.
Right, Operation Inherent Resolve.
Calling it a modern crusader campaign.
And they didn't just target military forces, did they? What about aid groups?
That was fascinating, yeah. They pivot to target international humanitarian organizations. Red Cross, UN emblem. They label them as running soft, deceptive campaigns.
Meaning?
They argue these groups pretend to offer aid, but are actually tools of the West, secretly working against Islam, weakening communities, sowing division.
So undermine trust in any outside help.
Exactly. Isolate the communities further, remove any potential rivals to ISCAP's own narratives and control. Clever, in a sinister way.
But how do they connect that global historical frame, the Crusades, the West, to the violence happening right there locally in the DRC?
That's the rhetorical bridge they have to build. They shift from the Crusades to more recent history, colonialism, painful images of Belgian, French abuses in the Congo region.
Tapping into that historical trauma.
Yes, citing specific grievances, like forcing Muslim children into secular schools. They tie that remembered colonial pain directly to their current war.
And that's the justification for?
That becomes the pivot point. They use that whole historical colonial frame to justify executing local Congolese Christians today.
How does that logic even work?
The video explicitly frames these victims as proxies. Because they share a religion with the historical enemy, the Crusader West, they're somehow paying the price for those past aggressions. It's a twisted but calculated way to rationalize indiscriminate local violence.
Devastating logic. The sources also mention Uganda as a big focus for ISCAP.
A clear priority. The narrator in that video spends a lot of time boasting about their activity there. A decade, they claim, of killing Christians, displacing people, burning churches.
So they're positioning themselves as a long-term threat there, not new arrivals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
An entrenched enemy of the Ugandan state. And they name names, or rather titles. The speaker directly calls out President Museveni, calls him a tyrant.
Raises the stakes, a direct challenge to the government.
It is, and they wrap that challenge in this really powerful religious analogy, comparing their own fight to Moses defeating the Egyptian pharaoh, Ramses II.
Wow. Moses versus Pharaoh. That's a universally understood story.
Across all the Abrahamic faiths, yes.
Yeah.
The ultimate story of the oppressed rising against tyranny. It frames ISCAP not as terrorists, but as this righteous revolutionary force destined to win. That resonates powerfully with anyone feeling oppressed, economically or politically.
And they're smart about language too, aren't they? Beyond just Swahili or Arabic.
Very smart. They include a hadith, saying of the Prophet Muhammad recited in French.
French. Why French?
To reach Francophone Muslims across the whole region, think Congo, Burundi, Rwanda, it expands their recruitment pool significantly, makes the message feel authentic to those communities.
So ideology, history, but they also need to show they can actually do things, right? Project power on the ground.
Absolutely. They need proof of capability. So they detail operational successes, attacking an army post in Luna, for example, and very strategically taking control of that key road, the RN4, heading towards Kasindi.
Why is controlling a road so important?
The RN4. That's about economic chokehold. It disrupts trade, it shows the government can't protect basic commerce, and it lets ISCAP seize resources like livestock, which they explicitly call spoils of war.
Sending a message. We control the economy here, not the state.
Precisely. We control what's necessary for survival, which feeds right into the next part. The recruitment push. The dawa in the video's title.
The call to join them.
Yes, a global call to hijra, to migrate. Urging Muslims from Congo, Burundi, Rwanda, Tanzania, Uganda, come to the land of Islam in the Congo.
They're promising a new society.
A structure, a community. They use those very specific, powerful religious terms. Muhajirin for the immigrants, Ansar for the local supporters who help them. It evokes the time of the Prophet Muhammad.
So it's a promise of brotherhood, protection, belonging.
Guaranteed support if you make the journey, using deep religious history to sell loyalty to their organization now.
And one last point on ISCAP. They really want to be called ISCAP, don't they? Not their old name.
Yes, they explicitly demand the world stop calling them the ADF, the Allied Democratic Forces.
Why is the name so important?
It's about legitimacy on the world stage. It signals their transformation from just a local Congolese insurgency into a full-fledged multinational affiliate of the global Islamic State brand. It's them saying, we've arrived. Recognize us.
Okay, let's widen the lens again. Thinking about the bigger ISIS network across Africa, that Fulcrum analytics report we looked at really dug into their core ideology.
Salafi jihadism, yeah. And that concept of takfir.
Explain takfir again. Why is that so critical?
Takfir is the act of declaring other Muslims to be apostates, non-believers. It's crucial because it gives groups like ISIS the ideological justification, their permission slip, basically, to commit extreme brutality against anyone who doesn't meet their standard. That includes other Muslims, governments they deem apostate, vast numbers of people.
So it allows for that indiscriminate violence we see.
It's central to it. And the sources showed how ISIS used this, along with strategic planning, to expand across Africa in 3 distinct phases. Very adaptable.
Okay, phase 1.
Phase 1, roughly 2014-2016, was early infiltration. Basically strategic co-option. They didn't build from scratch everywhere. They latched on to existing groups.
Like who?
Groups like Ansar Beit al-Makis in Egypt, Boko Haram in Nigeria, groups that were maybe already disgruntled or looking for a boost. ISIS offered the global brand, the ideology.
And got local fighters and territory in return. Expansion on the cheap, as the source put it.
Exactly. Instant footprint without the heavy lifting of starting fresh. Then came phase 2, 2016-2019, consolidation and expansion.
Moving beyond just the name.
Right. Setting up their own training camps, launching more complex signature ISIS-style attacks, and really exploiting state weakness, Libya, Somalia, DRC, places where the government was fragile. They started acting like a real operational force.
Yeah, phase 3. That's where we are now.
Pretty much. 2019 to present. Adaptation and decentralization. After losing ground in Iraq and Syria, they leaned heavily on their African branches. Local commanders got more autonomy.
Makes them harder to fight, right? Less centralized.
Much harder. More resilient, more flexible. It's why you see them operating strongly in so many places at once. The Sahel, the Lake Chad Basin with ISWAP, DRC with ISCAP, and importantly, Mozambique with ISIS-M.
So successes are clear. The geographic spread, recruitment, inspiring attacks elsewhere.
Undeniable reach, yes. But the sources also point out limitations. They struggle to hold territory long-term. Their extreme brutality, fueled by Takfir, limits popular support. And they face constant counter-terrorism pressure. So they're resilient, yes, but always shifting, adapting.
Let's focus on that adaptation in Mozambique. ISIS-M. The sources flagged a really significant shift there.
Yeah, that attack on the tourist spot. The Jaco hunting area in the Niassa Reserve, April 2025. That was new.
Why was attacking a tourist site such a big deal?
It signals a pivot, a cold-blooded move towards strategic economic warfare. They didn't hit a military base, they hit tourism, a source of foreign currency and state revenue.
And the attack itself was designed for maximum impact.
Brutal. Beheaded workers, camp looted, burned. All filmed for propaganda. They showed, 21 fighters posing, setting a small plane on fire, claiming they took no losses. It was pure messaging. Look what we can do. Look where we can reach.
And the message was explicit.
Extremely. Claimed by their media arms, Amek and Nashir, they called it a valued Christian tourist site, said it was part of their ongoing war against Christians, the Mozambique government, and the economy. Textbook asymmetric warfare. Hit the soft economic underbelly.
That incident also brought up the ransom issue, didn't it?
The ransom dilemma, yeah. Hostages were taken. They demanded nearly $50,000.
And the government
Rejected it.
Yeah.
Follow the global policy. Don't finance terrorism.
Which creates an awful situation.
It's an excruciating bind. The policy makes sense globally, stop money flowing to these groups. But on the ground, it can look like the government is abandoning its own people to follow international rules. It plays right into the extremist hands sometimes. Tough calls.
And the economic impact wasn't just local Mozambique, right?
No, it rippled outwards. The targeted camp was South African-owned. That attack sent chills through the whole regional tourism and investment sector. It showed instability in northern Mozambique is a direct threat to South Africa's economy too.
Which brings us to South Africa itself. The sources painted a complex picture there.
Very complex. On one hand, South Africa made progress, got off that FATF gray list, the financial watchdog list.
Which means they tightened controls on money laundering, terror financing.
Supposedly, yes. But the sources, especially those online chats, reveal South Africa is still a critical network hub.
A hub for what?
For recruiters, financiers, logistics, basically support systems for ISIS operations, particularly feeding into Somalia and Mozambique. Its stable banking, good infrastructure, global connections, paradoxically make it useful for these networks, even with better official controls.
And those online chats gave a real inside look.
An unfiltered view.
Yeah.
Showed a real focus on internal strengthening ideology, and especially the role of women.
How so? What role are women playing?
They have this document, The Lionesses of the Khalifa. It doesn't just portray women as wives or victims, it elevates them. to find specific active roles.
Like what?
Wombs of the believers, obviously, childbearing for the cause, but also tongues of the callers, meaning active recruiters, spreading the ideology and providing crucial medical support.
So they see women as integral to the long-term project.
Absolutely. And they use role models. Yeah. There was this case study, Fatima Patel, a South African woman married to a fighter. They called her the resilient pillar for the brothers in East Africa.
Using her story to inspire others?
Inspire loyalty, resilience, sacrifice, especially for supporters back in South Africa dealing with authorities. It also forces us to confront a difficult reality,
which is
that some women are active, willing participants. They are part of the threat. We can't just assume women are only victims, though many absolutely are subjected to horrific violence and coercion within these groups. It's a spectrum.
Okay, so we've looked at Al-Shabaab's media machine, ISCAP's historical framing, ISIS-M hitting the economy, the broader ISIS structure. Now, let's try to connect those dots, pull back again.
Yeah, because when you do that, you see these shared strategies popping up everywhere. It's not random. It looks like a common playbook, highly evolved, used by all these groups, even though they're in different places fighting different immediate enemies.
It's fascinating, really, the level of strategic alignment almost.
And so much of it revolves around psychology. The battle is often won or lost in people's minds, especially young, marginalized people, long before any shots are fired.
Right. Let's call that theme 4.1. The battle of ideas and psychological manipulation. How does that recruitment actually work? It's not instant, is it?
No, never instant. It's gradual. They target vulnerable people, teenagers, those feeling left out, lacking identity or purpose, people searching for something.
And the recruiters?
They're skilled at what one source called emotional grooming. They build trust. They listen to grievances, real or perceived. They validate those feelings of anger, injustice, hopelessness.
Make the person feel heard, understood.
Exactly. And then once that trust is built, that emotional connection is there, they introduce the extremist ideology as the answer, the simple, powerful solution to all those complex problems.
And once someone's in, it's hard to get out, even if they have doubts.
That's where cognitive dissonance kicks in. It's a psychological trap. When someone starts seeing the brutality, the reality of the violence, and feels doubt, instead of leaving, they often double down. To reduce that internal conflict, that dissonance, they have to rationalize the group's actions to justify their own commitment, to protect their sense of belonging, their identity. It makes them even more dedicated, paradoxically.
And all these groups are feeding off failures of the state, right?
Universally. Exploiting governance gaps, corruption, inequality, lack of basic services like justice or security. They thrive in that vacuum.
Presenting themselves as the alternative.
The morally legitimate or cleaner authority.
Yeah.
Whether it's Al-Shabaab running its own courts or ISCAP seizing livestock and claiming to distribute it fairly, they're systematically trying to prove the state is illegitimate and they are the better option.
Hey, theme 4.2. Weaponizing video and pop culture. We saw the slick ISCAP production, but it's broader than that.
Definitely. There's a whole spectrum of media sophistication, tailored to different needs.
Like what?
Well, on one end, you have those lo-fi, shaky cell phone videos from smaller groups like MPLJ in the Sahel. They look rough, authentic, like they were filmed by a participant. That resonates locally, feels immediate.
And the other end?
The high-res, cinematic stuff like ISCAPs. And increasingly, across groups like ISSP in the Sahel too, you see this deliberate adoption of video game aesthetics.
Video games? How?
Using things like red targeting circles on victims, editing attack footage to mimic first-person shooters like Call of Duty or action games like GTA.
Why do that?
It's a direct appeal to young men, especially gamers. It normalizes extreme violence, makes combat look exciting, maybe even aspirational, removes the grim reality. And sometimes the video isn't about looking cool, it's pure psychological terror.
Like the ISSP example.
Exactly. Showing the captured commanders' military IDs, stating their ranks before executing them on camera. That's not for global recruitment. That's aimed squarely at the soldiers fighting against them. Designed to break morale, create fear, make them wonder if their own leaders can protect them.
And the sources mentioned a future threat here. AI.
Yeah, that's a worrying prediction.
Yeah.
Improved AI translation. The idea that it could collapse the language barrier. Imagine taking that high-quality ISCAP video or horrific ISSP footage and instantly, flawlessly auto-dubbing it into perfect French, Spanish, English, dozens of languages.
Wow, so a local fight becomes global propaganda overnight?
Instantly accessible for recruitment worldwide. It could massively accelerate how quickly this stuff spreads. A huge potential force multiplier for them.
Okay, final unifying theme. 4.3, strategic economic warfare. This seemed to pop up everywhere.
It really did. A clear shift, or at least an added dimension, beyond just hitting soldiers or government buildings. They're hitting economic lifelines.
Like ISIS-M hitting tourism.
Perfect example. Or ISCAP controlling that RN4 trade route. Or other groups in the Sahel, like J&I, burning fuel convoys, attacking mines, hitting things that generate revenue or are essential for commerce.
Why this focus on the economy?
It's asymmetric, often easier and less risky than attacking hardened military targets. But the goal is systemic. Undermine the state's ability to function, to provide prosperity, disrupt trade, scare off investment, impoverish communities.
Which then creates more instability.
More grievances, more desperation.
Which provides more recruits for the extremists.
Exactly. It becomes a vicious self-feeding cycle. Economic attack fuels instability. Instability fuels recruitment. Recruitment fuels more attacks. Hashtag tag outro.
So when you piece it all together like this, it's undeniable, isn't it? This isn't just scattered violence. It's a coordinated information war across multiple fronts. Psychology, history, economics, the latest media tech, from local radio right up to potentially AI.
It makes it crystal clear why just military responses, just sending in troops, isn't going to be enough. It can't be.
Because the threat is so much deeper, more adaptive.
Exactly. The counter strategy has to be just as comprehensive, just as multifaceted. We have to tackle those root causes that exploit the corruption, the inequality, the lack of opportunity.
Strengthening governance, providing real alternatives.
Real, tangible economic and social pathways for people. Filling that vacuum before the extremists can.
And we also need to get much smarter about the information space, don't we? Competing with their narratives.
Absolutely. Developing effective counter-narratives, promoting media literacy. We need strategies that work online, where these groups are often incredibly sophisticated, more sophisticated than the counter efforts sometimes.
Right.
So maybe the final thought to leave people with is this. When extremist propaganda is literally just a click away, and it's packaged to look slick, credible, even historically justified, and you see how skillfully these groups exploit every tool, every grievance, how do we as individuals, as communities, as societies, proactively build a sense of belonging, a sense of purpose that's so compelling, so authentic, so strong, that it basically inoculates people against this extremist appeal before the recruiters even get their foot in the door? How do we build that resilience from the ground up?